A very warm welcome and a good evening to all of you who are in India, and a very good morning to all of you who are from USA. Friends, today we have all gathered for this international webinar organized by NTVS College of Law, Nandurbar, Maharashtra, on the topic Law and Social Transformation post-COVID-19. Friends, just 3 months ago, no one would have thought that we would be sharing the stage on online platform and we would be inviting a guest who is from USA. Indeed, the society has changed a lot in these last 3 months. That is because of COVID-19, or most popularly known as coronavirus. Now friends, the target of keeping the topic law and social transformation post-COVID-19 was that the most trending word in the world has become corona or COVID-19, but it has affected two of the most important entities of our life. One is law and another is society. And when law and society both are affected so largely, how it is possible that we can live peacefully anywhere in the world? The most affected countries in the world, one of the countries is USA, who has been hit by coronavirus very badly. And it has started in India also now. That from last 3 months, India was combating very well to fight the coronavirus. But we are also now entering into a stage which has become very, very dangerous. Now friend, as I said, law and social transformation or law and society are interrelated subjects, interrelated concepts. Law is a mirror to know how people relate to one another, their values, what they consider worth preserving in life, and how they define their own security. There are twofold objectives of law. Firstly, to keep stability and afford orderly life in the society. Secondly, to persuade social change by changing itself according to the needs of the changing society. Hence, law is an important agency of social control. The society supervenes the law for bettermost socialization. According to the World Health Organization, the problem does not lie in COVID-19 alone, but rather in the fear, panic, and the terror caused by the spread of this virus. There is no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic will change the face of the human society, but it forces us to ask some important questions. Will this change only affect the healthcare system, or will it extend to the consumption patterns, value systems, political regimes, and legal systems? Will the major transformation the world will undergo be determined by how we recover from the effects of this situation? Like this, there are various other questions which are standing in front of the world. And as I said you, law and social transformation both have changed dramatically and will be keep changing dramatically after the COVID-19 virus goes away also. Humankind is going through a new and unprecedented experience with the rapidly spreading COVID-19 pandemic. And with this theme, we have brought you one international webinar, Law and Social Transformation Post-COVID-19. And for this webinar, we have very eminent personality from United States of America, Dr. Christy Harrington, to whom I will introduce before she starts her presentation. But before we go ahead, now I would like to request a respected principal of this college who supported me to organize this seminar, and I hand over the stage to our respected principal, Dr. Andy Chaudhary sir. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Hassani. Good evening to all respected dignitaries who joined this webinar today. Dear friends, as we know that mankind is going through unprecedented experience with the rapidly spreading of COVID-19 pandemic. It radically changed the modern world. Measures like lockdown, enacting new laws are adopted by various governments around the globe. There are various effects of this pandemic or lockdown that crime rates are dropped on one side while domestic violence cases are increased at the other. Law is an instrument of social change. It is responsible for social transformations. Society is a changing phenomenon. Though there are several devices to reform the society, but the reformation through law is the most effective methods to achieve this end. Considering the same, Our NTVS College of Law, Institute of Legal Education and Research, Nandurbar, is organizing this international level webinar today on law and social transformation post-COVID-19. Friends, our college was established in the year 1999 with the valuable efforts of Honorable Advocate Rajendraji Raghuvanshi, former Additional Solicitor General of India. College is located in tribal and remote area of Maharashtra state. I am thankful to resource person Honorable Christy Harrington Madam, retired judge, South Colonia, USA, for being with us today. Once again, I welcome you all in this webinar. Thank you. Over to Dr. Hassani.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, friends, without wasting much time, it's time to hear our resource person, but it becomes our duty to welcome our resource person and to introduce who is she. I would like to put in front of you all about her biography or biodata. Let me start with the permission, with the kind permission of our resource person. I am introducing herself. Honorable Christy Harrington is from United States of America. She grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. She received her undergraduate degree from Francis Marion University, Florence, South Carolina, with a BA in English. She then obtained her law degree from the University of Tulsa from Oklahoma. During law school, Judge Harrington was employed by the District Attorney's Office in Tulsa, where she began prosecuting juvenile and adult felony cases with a limited license to practice law. She was also employed by the 9th Circuit Solicitor's Office, prosecuting crimes against women and children. She was selected to serve on the Children's Justice Task Force and attended many trainings to hone her advocacy skills, including attending a training at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Alexandria, Virginia. She became the youngest circuit court judge and one of only 6 female circuit judges in the state of South Carolina on February 6, 2008. She places much importance on the mentoring aspects of the legal profession. She was a founding member of the Pettigrew Inn of Court in Charleston, a local chapter of the American Inns of Court. She also started a day in court program in her circuit to allow high school students to observe the courtroom process. She has taught locally, statewide, nationally, and internationally. She has presented statewide on such topics as child sexual assault prevention and prosecution. She also worked as distinguished visiting professor at the Charleston School of Law, where she teaches a variety of classes such as advanced evidence, criminal procedure, trial advocacy, etc. She was also honored to be selected as adjunct faculty for the National Judicial College in Reno, Nevada. She traveled to India as a Fulbright scholar specialist to Symbiosis Law College. She lectured on a variety of topics including comparative, criminal and constitutional law, mood skills and legal research. She was also honored to present to Indian judges at the Maharashtra Judicial Academy and to the district judges in Pune. During her time in India, she lectured at 5 law schools. She was the guest speaker at an International Victims' Rights Conference in Goa. She is also owning her own alternative dispute resolution practice, which is known as Christy Harrington Dispute Resolution. She incorporates her mindfulness and yoga certifications by volunteering with a local organization that teaches Title I children yoga and mindfulness. She is a 200-hour certified yoga teacher working on her 500 certification. A focus of all her training is on self-care and mindfulness, especially when teaching those who are vicariously exposed to the trauma of child sexual abuse. Friends, if I keep going, the list is so long about her achievements that we will be shortage of time. But At the end, I would like to introduce with only 2 to 3 points that she is an educator, she was a judge, she is a trainer, she is a motivator, a motivational speaker, she is an administrator, and what not. So we are very privileged and we are very proud to have you, madam. And from here, I'd like to invite you to please start your presentation. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Sunny. You are very kind. I am honored to be here. I count among one of my greatest achievements was my time in India. It was too short, and every opportunity I get to return back, I will do so. So again, thank you for allowing me this wonderful opportunity. I was asked to speak on law and social transformation post-COVID-19, and it's such, when I was asked to speak about this topic, I was concerned about what would I address and what were the issues that we could talk about. One of the most enlightening things this morning as I was getting ready to present, it's 8 o'clock in South Carolina, we are not post-COVID-19. We in South Carolina and other southern states in the United States are in an increase in the level of cases. So we are right in the middle of dealing with COVID-19. And as I am sure all of you are as well, dealing with how it currently is impacting you and what the future is going to be for the law. So I always like to show this picture. This was the day of my swearing in, and it's a nice reminder to me of how young and excited I was about the law. That is my son and my great mentor, Judge Pieper, who I was honored he was able to swear me in. I live in South Carolina and in the United States, and that is where South Carolina is. I'm on the Atlantic Ocean, and I am on, my hometown is Charleston, South Carolina, which is on the coast of Charleston. I want to talk about 3 particular topics and areas, and Dr. Sunny, if there's a particular question pertinent, I'm happy to take questions at the end, or if there's something that we want that you find important to discuss, I'll let you interrupt and let me know if there's a particular question that you think is important to be answered at that time.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm now just giving the instruction to participants so that they can put their questions in the chat box. So if any important questions come in between, I will let you know, ma'am. Otherwise, we will keep the question and answer session after your speech gets over.
Okay, great. So I want to talk about, in the United States, this transformation in the judicial system itself, transformation in our legal education. As you know, I am a legal educator for judges. I teach at our National Judicial College in the United States, and I also am a distinguished visiting professor at my local law school, Charleston School of Law. I believe I have at least one of my law students in attendance, and so I would just like to thank my students and colleagues for participating. And then I would like to talk about just in general our transformation in our criminal justice system in the United States. So COVID's impact on the judicial system, immediately there was a closure of the court system. We in South Carolina closed about mid-March, March 15th, and the court was closed fairly soon after that. There were other states, particularly New Jersey and New York, that opened or that closed sooner than we did, but that is about where most states started closing. So the beginning of March, mid-March. What that meant then was some procedures for our criminal defendants as well as our civil litigants. And it also then meant that there was going to be some impact on bond procedures and our detainees. So this closure of the court system brought to attention the right to speedy trial concerns. In the United States, in our Constitution, we have the right to a speedy and public trial. So closing this court system has caused some concern about what does this right to a speedy trial mean, and how are our criminal defendants going to be able to access also, there are access to justice issues. When we begin to use certain WebEx or Zoom to conduct hearings, there are, especially in my state, there are pockets of the state that do not have access to internet. And so that would deprive an individual from accessing the courthouse, just as if that person could not appear due to some other concerns. So what our chief justices began to do was this balancing test between the need to keep the courthouse doors open, as well as keeping the public and our court personnel safe. Our courts began to use WebEx or Zoom to conduct necessary hearings. And so usually for the hearings, the WebEx has been the platform of choice. Most of our mediations, arbitrations, and classes have begun to be held via Zoom. So there were some very positive impacts of and outcomes from this immediate closure of our court system. I think that prior to COVID, most of our judges were very concerned about using alternative hearings and using the internet. We were all afraid of the Zoom bombings, where people would come in and take over the hearing. But as we have found out, that the use of WebEx and Zoom to conduct hearings, especially setting of bail and bond or non-jury matters, has been very helpful and has kept our judicial system moving. What also was a unexpected yet positive outcome from this immediate closure was that people began to use alternative dispute resolution tools in different ways. And so mediation between the parties and arbitration became useful tools that parties could use because the courthouse doors were closed. So what then the shift for mediators and arbitrators began on how do we conduct hearings that are going to protect the privacy that is required, the confidentiality that is required when we are using these tools that most of us prior to March of this year were unfamiliar with. And so there became a flurry of activity in the United States on how to use WebEx and Zoom in order to protect your clients' interest in confidentiality and privacy. So tools such as Zoom breakout rooms became very important tools for attorneys to use, mediators to use in order to resolve these disputes. So I believe that the legal system rallied around in a timely fashion using the tools that were at hand in order to solve some of these very immediate issues. Some of the uncertain outcomes that we still do not know about this immediate closure of our court system is our jury trials. And I am very aware and fascinated by your lack of jury trials and the history of why there are not jury trials. But in the United States, it is a constitutional right to a jury trial. And we have instituted various studies. Most of our chief justices of the state, as well as our legal and judicial educators, have commissioned studies to determine how and when we can implement jury trials. So part of the concern is that we would be unable to conduct a jury trial via Zoom because of there would be no way to ensure that a juror would not be subject to outside influence or somebody sitting next to them that's using undue influence. What we also are uncertain about, because we do not have the statistics, is this impact of the vulnerable victims that we call, and that's typically our elderly, our domestic violence victims, and our children. How the closing of this court system, and just in general, the closing and quarantine is going to impact those victims, and how when we do open up our court system and our schooling system, that is going to impact our justice system. So the discontinuation of bond or bail in the United States, defendants are protected under the 8th Amendment to our Constitution, that excessive bail should not be required, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So part of this issue became, one of the first things that became pretty consistent was most chief justices discontinued any eviction proceedings, and also discontinued some arrest and or bail and ordered immediate release of misdemeanor offenses. So what we had were some individuals that were being arrested for misdemeanor offense, a 30-day offense, not a felony, not considered a violent or a serious offense. And so of course then the media was inundated with stories of individuals who were being arrested numerous times in one day for very similar offenses because they were not being held and did not have to post bail. There was also a discontinuation of arrest if there was an outstanding warrant. So this became a way to decrease the influx of individuals, of defendants into the prison and jail population. So some of those negative outcomes were, again, certain defendants were released and rearrested within hours. But the positive outcomes were that less people were incarcerated, and so that protected the inmate population from COVID-19. And as most of you are aware, that it is those very densely populated situations, such as nursing homes and prisons and jails, that lead to a spread quickly and more impact from the COVID-19. What I believe will be another positive outcome is a continuation of better evaluations of detention risks and necessities and arrest. So officers were given the opportunity, and we have seen some reforms prior to COVID, but then implemented due to COVID, of arrest of individuals and then released on tickets and given court dates in the future. So I think that having the ability to evaluate the necessity of a pretrial detention in the field is a major positive outcome of how we are doing things in our criminal justice system. We also have seen some positive bail reforms. And again, every defendant is entitled to bond or bail. The purpose of bond or bail in our criminal justice system is to ensure the return of that individual to court. And so certain states in the United States have done away with money bail and have implemented better screening procedures to determine who needs to be released, who should be released, and who can be released. So again, utilizing these reforms that were already beginning to take place, but utilizing them in a more positive way because we had to, I think is going to lead to continued positive outcomes for our criminal justice system. So this was something that a lot of you probably dealt with in your own law schools, was this impact upon our legal education here in the United States. So again, I was preparing to go to a trial competition with a trial team that I had been working with in March, and then we were going on spring break. So what happened was my students went on spring break, and then we immediately came back to only online classes. So I believe that all legal U.S. law schools are online. I am currently teaching summer classes at the law school in Charleston, and all of our classes are online. We are planning in my school to return to on-campus, on-ground classes in the fall, but I did hear that Harvard will be online in the fall. So I think, again, there's going to be some discussion about moving forward, especially with this recent uptick in cases. We also saw and still see a disruption of legal internships, offers of employment for this summer, and the bar examination uncertainty. So in the United States, typically a law graduate after 3 years graduates in May, takes the bar exam immediately upon graduation in that July in the state in which he or she intends to practice. So by March of this year, most law schools had gone entirely to online classes. And because of that, we saw a spike, if you will, of tuition and housing lawsuits, students filing against the college or university that they had been attending for reimbursement of their housing and tuition. And then again, as I'm not sure, Sunny, how those.
Ma'am, I think something has been praised from your side in the keyboard. Now it's okay.
Okay. I am not touching that for sure.
That you will have to keep at some distance, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And so we are concerned, of course, our authority is the American Bar Association and their accreditation of the law school. So the concerns that they would have about having the classes online is, again, concerns that we have. And again, Sunny, I'm sorry, I'm just not sure what's happening.
Oh, fine, ma'am. It's going on well. It's going on well.
All right.
Yes.
action to online classes. And so some of my students really enjoy the classes, but I have found that most are ready to come back online because of this difficulty in having this in-class experience that is so important in classes like trial advocacy and the moot court competitions. And so having the opportunities, while this is wonderful, there is no replacement for really having that one-on-one opportunity. So one of the big issues has become this really a loss of summer experience for our students. So the majority of law firms have discontinued summer internship programs during the summer 2020 term. And this leaves students without viable employment or even these internship opportunities as we continue into this third month and into the fourth month of disruption. Students are concerned about these uncertain job markets moving into the fall of 2020. We also now have some bar examination uncertainty, and what is really typically very important is this uniformity. And so now we have a lack of uniformity in how the bar exam will be administered. So some states are continuing with the July as previously scheduled. Some have moved into September, giving even more time. Some are contemplating online examinations, and so there's going to be delays as now every day seems to be different when we have different states with different spikes. So this bar examination uncertainty has played into some of the ways that I see the law students dealing with COVID and this uncertainty. So again, some of the positive outcomes have been greater virtual opportunities, and some uncertain outcomes are this bar passage rates, or is that going to be affected, how the ABA is going to deal with some of these issues in having exams administered in July and September, maybe online, maybe not at all. Some of the very negative outcomes have been this loss of job experience, the ability to intern in a firm and then have that option to be hired after a graduation, and this loss of in-person training. I'm currently teaching a trial advocacy skills class, and while we can do it virtually, again, it's very hard for me to explain to a student how to stand in a courtroom, where to stand, and how to have that impact upon the jury. So this is where I think that we are going to spend the most of the remainder of our time, and what I find is vitally important as we talk about post-COVID-19. So most of you, I am sure, have seen the news and heard the news about our protests regarding the use of police force, certain types of police procedures, chokeholds, and have had or heard the term systemic racism, and how our current drug laws in the United States are causing this disparate impact. I love the terminology and the phrase that law is an instrument of society, and we can use this instrument, we can use the law to impact the change where we see these situations arising. So here is where, when we talk about the what we're talking about and what needs to change. So this is a very recent poll that say that the criminal justice system needs an overhaul or a major change. And so all of the adults that were polled, 29% indicate that there needs to be a complete overhaul of the United States criminal justice system. 40% say major changes, and 25% minor changes. So when we look at the breakdown, it is clear that the American population indicates that there are some changes that need to be made. And so when we say that change needs to be made, the next question should be always is what change? And so here is, again, same poll from the AP indicating that here are some topics that there would be for police reforms. And so one of the big impacts, and we've had the use of body cameras that the police wear and are required to wear in most jurisdictions. 71% of the American public feels that we should require the use. Most jurisdictions in the United States have been using body cameras since about 2015, and but there are systemic problems with body cameras. Again, storing them, storing the footage, and making sure that the camera is on. Another concern is always privacy issues, and if an individual is a juvenile or a victim, how do we handle those types of issues when that individual appears on the footage? Where I think that we are getting most of the concern is this clear standard of use of force. The Senate, there was a proposal by Senator Tim Scott, who is South Carolina's senator and from Charleston, and he had proposed a bill in the Senate that was not even put to the floor for discussion yesterday. So there seems to be a push for this establishing clear standards of use of force by police officers, but no one at this point has established what those clear standards should be and who is going to be able to establish those clear standards. So there's a variety of police techniques that are used. And so most jurisdictions have discussed the abolishment of chokeholds. There used to be a procedure many years ago that defendants were actually what we call hog-tied, their wrists and ankles were tied in order to restrain them. That was abolished several years ago after it was clear that that was causing death to the defendant. So where this clear standards in use of force seems to be, I think, the biggest issue. Requiring officers to report peer misconduct, and we heard a lot about that after the George Floyd incident in May. And where there were other officers observing that who did not report any misconduct, and the explanation for that is this hierarchy in the police command that trains officers not to report misconduct on each other, and especially not of their superior officers. Prosecuting officers who use excessive force, and where we've seen that. So in 2015, Walter Scott was killed by a police officer in North Charleston. He was prosecuted for the murder of Walter Scott for shooting him in the back as Walter was running from an encounter with that police officer. Since that time, I have seen that officers have been arrested and charged, and so we have seen that all over the news in the last few months, especially. So there seems to be a realization and an acknowledgement by those in command in our prosecutor's office or our Department of Justice to indict those officers and criminally prosecute those for using excessive force during their shift. There was, and there's always been this concept of qualified immunity, and so most people feel that that gives an officer somewhat carte blanche, a free pass to use excessive force. There needs also this concept of racially biased policing and reducing focus on low-level offenses. We touched a little bit about that when we talked about not incarcerating, not detaining individuals for these misdemeanor offenses. There has been a call for and a movement called Defund the Police. But as you can see in this graph, that does not seem to be where the wide support for police reform is. I think most individuals would agree that police is necessary, but we want officers who are trained, are not biased racially, and are focused on policing in the right way in the right cases. So when we talk about systemic racism, we talk typically when we see the rallies for Black Lives Matter, to stop racist cops, to protect the system, defund, and there's this sense that the system itself, the criminal justice system, is set up in such a way that it continues to promote the treatment of African Americans differently than it does any other race. So in 2018, the imprisonment rate of Black males in the United States was incredibly more than the imprisonment of white males. The imprisonment rate of Black females, was almost twice the rate of white females. At the end of 2018, an estimated 6% of sentenced white males were aged 18 to 24, compared to twice that of same-aged Black males. Black males 18 to 19 years of age were 12.7 times as likely to be imprisoned as white males of the same ages. So that is where we see the highest Black to white racial disparity of any age group. And I have given you the citation for, and that's the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And so it is a wonderful publication. It has amazing statistics on this racial disparity. So when we start looking at this racial disparity, that a certain age group, a certain racial makeup is 12.7 times as likely to be imprisoned, and that's not even the arrest, as white males of the same ages, this is where this idea of the systemic racism comes in. So why is it that this particular age group, this particular race, is being imprisoned at that high of a rate? Part of it is we see This is a U.S. population, prison population by offense. And so almost 50% of our prison populations are drug offenses. And so when we start talking about why certain individuals are imprisoned more often than others, we need to look at why this offense has happened. I've also included this race disparity from different states in the United States. And what this figure shows is race disparity in U.S. drug possession arrests. The red line that you see on the left-hand side of the page is a 1-to-1 ratio. And so what that means in particularly, so my state of South Carolina is about, from the bottom, about 10 states up. So the ratio of black to white arrests in South Carolina is more than 2-to-1. And this is the per race of per 100,000 adult population. And these are 2014 statistics. So one of the classes that I do teach is at the law school is a cannabis law or marijuana law class. And we see that we began this war on drugs back in the 80s that had really started in the 1960s as really a race issue, and has continued to be one of those issues in our country. So what does this mean for our criminal justice system? All of these protests and riots that we see, what that means is we are aware of these issues. We are encouraging better police practices, and we are attempting to get more equal treatment under the law. So those are the goals, of course. As I indicated, there were some new laws that were up for debate in our Senate yesterday, and that did not make it to the floor. So I'm hopeful that somebody else, I think there is an equal bill in our House of Representatives that should be up for debate later this week, if not next week. So what some of the other issues that we have seen in the legal system is this increase in COVID-related lawsuits. And some of those lawsuits deal with very obvious issues such as nursing home liabilities. So in the United States, a nursing home where we have a high population of elderly individuals that are being treated and cared for by the nursing home statistically was a place where there were high COVID deaths. And so the nursing home associations are looking for protection from lawsuits as they became, so to speak, COVID hotbeds. And so we will see litigation ensuing from the failure to protect the individuals in those nursing homes. We'll also see cruise ship litigation as passengers were unable to disembark. Again, we're subject to being on cruise ships for months at a time without being able to get off, or subjected to a failure to advise or to clean. So I think those are some areas of the law that we will also see in the future as lawsuits arise. The force majeure clause in our contracts, where that those were clauses in contracts intended to define unforeseeable circumstances. And so as we see businesses having to shut down, this business interruption and this reliance on the insurance for these unforeseen circumstances, insurance companies then pushing back against having to pay out due to this pandemic. So those are outside of criminal justice reform, but I do believe that those are some of the topics that we are going to see raised in the future once our courthouse doors are open. I know in South Carolina, as of last week, our Chief Justice was planning to have jury trials resume in August. And so once those are resumed, I think that we're going to see more cases filed and some issues that we had not talked about. So Sunny, that is the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It was really a nice presentation, and how this 30-35 minutes went away really didn't bother us. And as I have already mentioned you that I have already given the instruction to participant to put the question in chat box, and we have received some of the questions, ma'am. So if you can I start, ma'am?
Certainly.
Oh, fine. Somebody has asked, what is the stand of Indian diaspora on racial issues? Is there such kind of study?
Ask that one more time, I'm sorry.
What is the stand of Indian diaspora on racial issues? Is there such kind of study?
I'm not sure.
Participant wants to ask you, what are your views regarding Indian racial diaspora? Or have you gone through any study on it?
I have not.
Fine, ma'am. There is another question from Dr. Vijay Bhairam. So I will unmute Dr. Vijay Bhairam and ask him to please ask the question. Yes, Bhairam, sir.
Dr. Hassani.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, madam, and good evening to Dr. Hassani, Dr. Nitish, and all other charitable participants. Madam, the world is facing really a crucial time from last 6 months. As far as our legal fraternity is concerned, what type of social and psychological changes will took place after COVID-19 pandemic? And what will be the impact of it on right to liberty, right to personal life, right to connect with other? So will you focus on these topics?
So how all of this will change the United States psychologically, and was that your question?
Ma'am, can you repeat for Dr. Bhairam, sir?
Hello.
Dr. Sunny, could you repeat? I had a little breakup at the
Yes,
beginning
yes.
of his question.
Okay, Bhairam, sir, can you again ask the question?
But madam, the world is facing a crucial time from last 6 months, and it will really
Yes.
impact on the social and psychological changes after COVID-19. So because of the social and psychological changes, it is really affecting the right to connect with other people, right to personal liberty, right to health, right to safety, right to protection. So everybody is taking care of him and his family. So what type of right to privacy, right to health will be created after COVID-19?
So I agree. So there's most of us now have quarantined and we're not able to leave our homes or go to our places of business unless we were considered essential workers. Some of us were isolated if we did not have family close. And so what I am looking forward cautiously with how this will impact the psychology of an impact on individuals. So I think that that is a question that is going to need some time to tell, Dr. Vijay. That was a wonderful question.
Yeah, agree.
I think that that's one of those things that next year when we meet, we'll look back and say, I didn't realize that was going to be an impact.
Yeah, great. Well agreed.
Thank you, Bayram sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
So, Dr. Sunny, I saw a question pop up. Do I think that body cameras can be misused? I do, and there is a way. First of all, sometimes they don't work, they don't function. You can cover them up. The way that the information is stored can sometimes they don't store properly, or there's not enough storage. So you know, there is or you know, it is incumbent upon the officer. It is the officer's responsibility to download those videos upon the shift change. So if that does not occur, that can happen as well. And so just because the officer has a camera on does not mean that the camera that the consuming public is entitled to that access.
Fine. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Ma'am, can we take another question?
Certainly.
Okay, it is Dr. Itishri Mishra. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am, and good evening
Good
to all the
afternoon.
people,
Good evening.
Indians. My question is the judicial system approach has become so lenient in your justice delivery system in post-COVID-19 period in USA in looking into the cases?
Do I think that it's become more lenient? I don't believe that it's become more lenient. I believe that there have been some areas that, of course, we have a saying, you give somebody an inch, they'll take a mile. That because of the way, especially with this not in holding or detaining individuals, that it almost gave certain individuals a freedom that they felt that they could continue to commit certain crimes. I think overall that the changes that were made in order to keep the system moving as expeditiously as it did were also had significant benefits to the system.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mishra ma'am. Thank you very much, Christy ma'am.
Thank you.
And one more question is there, ma'am.
Okay.
Who wants to ask? It is Dr. Sajida Sheikh, madam. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Good evening and good morning to Christy ma'am. My
Good
question,
evening.
am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
My question is that there cannot be 100% education given online for law students because the teacher need to interact with the student. There are assignments. There is the first-hand experience to the student. They need to go to court. Now there is a very big loss. We are canceling the examinations. We are. It is of course for their security, but there is a big loss. So how do we cover this loss? How do we make our students confident, how do we take them back, and how do we bring back that confidence in them which is lost to them?
And so that I agree with you 100%. I think there are some things that you can achieve online, but you cannot replicate the one-on-one instruction and being physically in a courtroom and hearing and seeing how that judge is going to rule on your case. So those are things that I feel is the current law student is going to have a deficit. And those were some of the things that I say that's a negative outcome post-COVID. And it seems like forever since I've been in a real courtroom and had real students to teach, but it's just been a few months. And so I think that what we'll have to do is recognize that there were some challenges, there were some deficits, and work to get them caught back up. But I agree with you 100%. I miss my students. I really do. And giving them that one-on-one attention and showing and sharing the court system with them.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about how we could get them back or utilize what we have since we're not in the courtroom? I don't know how to do it. So other than what we're doing.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Regarding Hello.
Hello.
Regarding the internship program, it has been like there is a provision through online that we can go through Intershala internship program in order to continue the internship training. Rather than like when we are going through an online teaching, we can even go through an online internship program. Like many law firms are welcoming for it. Is it found in USA?
We do, but again, those have been limited and not as plentiful. And I think one of the concerns, especially from the previous question, is this actually being in court and actually observing other individuals conduct a hearing. And I think there's just no way to replicate that online.
Fine, ma'am. We will take one last question, ma'am.
All right.
And that is from Dr. Weber Sobnis. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thank you, Harrington ma'am, for very insightful and very thoughtful session. My question is, how is COVID-19 going to affect the international relations, and how is the international law going to monitor this?
So I am not an expert in international relations, so that is outside my scope. But I do watch the news, and I do feel that people are being asked into quarantine. I think right now, since America is a hotspot, we're not allowed to travel to some countries that we normally had free travel to and from. And I think that that's going to impact our relations. We are in an election year, and I think that is going to impact our relations, of course. When I was in, so I think that there's a lot of factors at play, and I wish that I had more international experience to give you a better answer than that. But I think that most countries as the US did. We were very protective, shutting down borders, and I think other countries are going to do that. And I think depending on how it does, it is going to impact relations. I know that even in our own country, New York and New Jersey now have said that they're going to quarantine from visitors from other states. And so being one of those from one of those states that I can't go to New York now, it does cause a little concern and issues for me. But so I think that that's going to, again, play into some of those relations. So that was a great question. And I think it's also one of those things that we're going to see in the next few months. It's going to increase the tensions as the cases increase or decrease. So thank you for that question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vaibhav Sabnis sir, for a meaningful question. Thanks a lot once again to Prisky ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, there are lots of questions, but we are shortage of time. So what I think is I can mail you all the questions, all the queries.
Perfect.
Fine, ma'am. So which have been asked by the participant, and I will take the answers from you and then forward to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure. I hope that you found it enjoyable and informational and informative. So thank you for this opportunity.
So before I proceed to ma'am. So before I proceed to the concluding part, I have one announcement for all the participants that all are requested to bear with me. I'm not a technical expert person. I'm a faculty member like you. So it will take time for me to prepare the certificates for you. The feedback form will be sent to your email IDs, which you have registered with in our webinar. You will get the feedback form soon, maybe from tomorrow itself. Lot-wise you will get. We have got nearly 700 registrations. So it will take a time to reach the feedback form to your email IDs. Once the feedback form gets into your email IDs, you have to fill the feedback form and wait for some certificate for 2 to 3 days. So this process might take from 8 to 10 days. I will make sure that each and everyone gets the certificate, but you will have to be patient. I request you all not to ask me personally about the certificates, because I won't be able to answer personally to each and every participant, and I don't want to hurt anyone by not answering that. So it's my sincere request. I will make sure that each and everyone gets the certificates well in time. For that, you will have to wait for some times. Now, friends, let's move to the concluding part of this webinar. And it's my duty to thank each and everyone who were involved in this webinar. So let me start with permission of our resource person, this thanking ceremony, this valedictory ceremony, we can say. So first and foremost, I would like to sincerely pay my gratitude, pay my thanks to Honorable Dr. Christy Harrington from USA, who on a single message agreed to be a resource speaker for this webinar. And ma'am, I would like to congratulate you. I would like to congratulate our whole team that we all have become part of our first international webinar organized by this institute. We have organized a lot of seminars, state level, national level seminar, university level seminar, but this was our first international webinar, and we were really proud and privileged to have you as a resource speaker, and that too on the topic law and social transformation post COVID-19, which is really a burning and a problematic topic for each and every one in the world. As I said, not only USA but entire world has been hit by this pandemic, and we are so much proud and we are so much thankful to you for giving your valuable suggestions, for your valuable inputs, for your valuable knowledge to all our participants. The participant included the students as well, advocates as well, the teaching fraternity from law department, other faculties, all were the mixture of the participants in our webinar. So ma'am, on behalf of NTVS College of Law, I would really like to thank you once again. Next,
Thank you.
I would like to mention that without the support of Nandurbar Taluka Vidayak Samiti, that is the management of our college, we were not able to sit over here in front of you all. Always there is a support from our Honorable Chairman, Honorable Manoj Bhaiyaji Raghuvanshi, Honorable Vice Chairman Rajendra Ji Raghuvanshi, who was ex-Additional Solicitor General of India and currently Vice Chairman of our institute. Also, along with this, all the members who are involved, all the respected dignitaries involved in Nandurbar Taluka Vidayak Samiti who support always us in this type of ventures. Next, I would like to thank our respected principal of this college, Dr. N.D. Chaudhary sir, who on a single message of mine, as this is a pandemic period, we are at our respective homes. I just messaged him and he was ready to organize this such a wonderful webinar. So with parallel support, with undoubted confidence he has on me always, I would like to thank him for giving me this opportunity to organize this beautiful international webinar. Next, I would like to thank our teaching and non-teaching staff of this college who supported me undoubtedly. Also, I would like to thank all the participants who are today on board with our webinar, who somehow could not be on board but registered for this webinar. And at the last, I would like to thank our technical person, Mr. Harshal Patil sir, who provided us this technical platform, all the technicalities. I would like to also thank him. So once again, all the participants, respected resource person, principal, and all my dear friends, I would like to once again congratulate all and thank you all for being with us for this international webinar. With this, I would like to declare that our international webinar ends over here. And at the last, I would just like to request Honorable Dr. Christie ma'am to have a last word for all the participants.
Again, thank you so much for having me, and just want you to know that all the concerns that we're having, and use the law to effectuate the change. So using this time that otherwise could be seen as very negative, to implement these very positive changes, in even small changes can really help society. So thank you for all that you are doing, each individual and as a group. And again, have a wonderful evening, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your day.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Your words of wisdom really encouraged us, and I'm sure all the participants enjoyed this webinar like anything. So thanks a lot everyone, and I'm ending this meeting with the permission of Honorable Resource Speaker and our principal. Thank you.